Yo,
March Madness.
I'm telling you.
On the women's side.
You want to talk March Madness? Last night, that game between UConn and NC State was the best college basketball game, men's or women's, that we have seen this March. Double overtime. UConn started the tournament plus 350 to win the championship. Now plus 200. 14 straight Final Four appearance for UConn. Like, it was insane. I've stayed up. I watched this. My wife was watching a terrible show, Bridgerton.
It's a great show.
It's a terrible show. Anyway, even at the end of the first overtime, you're thinking, oh my God, UConn's going to get out of this. And I forgot who the young lady was for NC State. Buries a corner three, and we go to double overtime. And it was just back and forth, back and forth.
13 lead changes.
Okay.
9 ties.
Oh.
How crazy is that?
It's crazy. And Paige Becker's just this young phenom for UConn, knocking down 27 points. And so the Huskies will get Stanford now on Friday. And also, I'm watching this game, and I'm like, Gino Auriemma definitely looks like a rich villain from an Austin Powers movie.
I love that that's what...
Major takeaway for me last night.
Major takeaway. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's really good to see everyone here on this Tuesday edition of The Sweat, presented by DraftKings.
Yeah.
I'm Emerson Lazio. What's your name?
Jesse Cofield.
Love it, love it, love it. And since we're talking hoops, let's go ahead and make that easy transition into the National Basketball Association. Here's our panel this morning. RotoWire's Nick Whalen, Ryan Mogjosh, host of the Four Seasons podcast. Good to see everybody. We do have a 5-game slate tonight. So I want to get into a little bit of DFS. want to get into some sports book for tonight. And let's start with that big game. You want to go Bucks-Sixers?
Yeah, Bucks-Sixers, highlight of the slate probably.
Sweet.
Before we get into the game, let's take a look at some futures in the Eastern Conference here, though. These teams are tied in the standings right now. Both 46 and 28. Bucks plus 300 to win the East, while the Sixers are plus 450. So when you're hearing that, Nick, like, what's the better bet here?
I think it's still Milwaukee at 3-1. And I think it's really interesting where the 76ers are priced here because, your guys' beloved Boston Celtics are at plus 425. So technically lower odds than the 76ers, despite losing Robert Williams, likely for the entire first round of the NBA playoffs and potentially even longer. So to me, it seems like the odds makers have lost a little bit of faith in the 76ers, who by all accounts are fully healthy at this point, and they look great those first few games with James Harden in uniform. And Harden has looked awesome when they play an average or below average opponent, but it seems like every time they play a good team, he has a 2 for 11 game with 6 turnovers, and he's 1 of 8 from 3. So the honeymoon period, I think, is kind of worn off with James Harden, and people are back to being skeptical of the Philadelphia 76ers. Meanwhile, the Bucks are still yet to go on that 10-game winning streak where they remind everybody why they beat the Phoenix Suns 4 times in a row to win the NBA Finals last July. But to me, they still have the highest floor by a pretty good margin of any of these teams in the Eastern Conference. I don't love the Nets at plus 250. Way too many question marks with that team right now. So I think the Bucks at 3-1 are a pretty good bargain. I think that number is going to steadily come down as we move through the playoffs.
Hey, Nick, just real quick. What did the Celtics show you last night? They had nobody. They were shorthanded. No Jaylen Brown, no Jason Tatum, and they nearly took down a playoff team in the Raptors.
Yeah, they did. I think they answered a lot of questions about their depth. And, it is just a one-game thing. We've seen teams do this lately. Like, the Heat got tripped up twice in the last couple of weeks by teams that were resting a bunch of stars. So, maybe some of it is just the other team, thinking we have a cakewalk because 4 starters are out. But, a lot of people questioned the Celtics' depth when they were a sub-500 team midway through the season. And, picking up Daniel Tice at the trade deadline now looks like a genius move. Somebody who knows the system, is very familiar with everything the Celtics do, and with Robert Williams gone, he's given them good minutes. He played 41 minutes in that game last night, and they only lost by 3 to a Toronto team that played really well. Pascal Siakam, put up 40 points in that game. So, when everybody's back healthy, if they can make it through round 1, we'll see what the matchup is, and you get Robert Williams back, now you feel a lot better, I think, about the depth that you have in spots 6 through 9 on the roster. Grant Williams is playing well. Peyton Pritchard's playing awesome off the bench. Derek White has fit in well. This team's going to be really dangerous. I'm just a little concerned about what that matchup ends up being in round 1, but, likely without Robert Williams.
All right, Ryan, Bucks plus 300 to win the East, Sixers plus 450. Nick's going with the Bucks. Where are you going?
I'm going Sixers, and this is strictly a regular season thing because I think it's completely different if we're talking finals appearance and championship. But the Bucks are a little banged up. Giannis and Middleton have not played in 2 of the last 5 games, I think it was. They're adding Brook Lopez back, who is our starting center. That's going to take some time. And like Nick mentioned, the Sixers' honeymoon phase is over, and they're rolling. Ever since All-Star break, Harden's been on the team. They've gotten their team chem. It looks better than it was. To win the regular season with not much games left, I'm going with Sixers over Bucks. But Giannis hasn't proved that he's beatable in the playoffs in the last year and a half. So playoffs is a different story.
Yeah, and tonight's game too, Ryan, like Sixers are at home, so they're favored by 1.5. Just looking at the board here, Sixers minus 120 on the money line, Bucks like plus 100. I mean, these teams have split their first 2 games this season. Who wins tonight, and what's a bet you like?
This was tough for me. I rolled with the Sixers tonight, basically just because of they're at home. Sixers fans rowdy. But both are coming off of losses, so both are going to be wanting to win this game. And it has huge playoff implications as far as seeding goes. Giannis is probable. I assume he's going to play a national televised game, huge game. I went with the Sixers, but the bet that I really like tonight, I'm going to sneak in on Clippers +1, and there's a couple of reasons. Rudy and Bojan are game time decisions. Rudy didn't play last game. Hassan Whiteside has already been ruled out. That's a lot of defense gone and a lot of offense for Bojan gone. Paul George, probable to return tonight. I know he's going to be on a minutes restriction, but the crowd is going to be juiced. They're in LA. I just think that they have a good vibe about them tonight, and +1, they're getting a point. I like the Clippers bet tonight.
Okay, Nick, which way you lean in tonight? Hook us up with a bet.
Yeah, I like the Bucks on the road at Philly tonight. They're +1.5 in that game. I mean, not a whole lot of difference taking that versus taking them +100 on the money line. So you might as well just do that. But this Philly team, to me, when the lights are on, like it just hasn't been pretty so far, you know. And I know Milwaukee's come up short in these situations a few times this year as well. But I think the Bucks are finally now back at full strength, and with Brook Lopez back in the mix, you know, they're well equipped, I think, to defend a team that has a dynamic, you know, powerful center in Joel Embiid. And honestly, you know, no team really has a guy that's a great matchup for Embiid, but you know, you have Lopez. You know, the addition of Serge Ibaka, I think, was really important for them, and will continue to be important throughout the playoffs in terms of having a backup center. You know, you still have Bobby Portis you could throw in there, and obviously Giannis could slide up and play center as well. And you know, Milwaukee is a team that I don't think is the type of franchise that looks at the standings and says, all right, how can we dodge this team, or how can we dodge the Nets in round 1? Like, I think they want the 1 seed. I think they want to prove they're the best team in the NBA, and winning a game like this goes a long way toward accomplishing that. And on the other end of the spectrum, it feels like Philly is totally that type of team. That's like, how can we position ourselves to give us the easiest path possible through the playoffs? And it seems like more often than not, you know, this is very anecdotal evidence, but more often than not, when teams try to do that, it ends up backfiring. And you know, you kind of get that motivation factor of, wait, these guys want to play us. They think they're better than us. And I don't know, I just don't have that kind of killer vibe with the 76ers. And James Harden in a big game like this, it kind of scares me.
All right, let's move over to DFS. Need your favorite high-priced DFS play, Nick. Looking here, Giannis, the most expensive guy at 11.7, followed by Doncic at 11.4. You gonna go with either of them?
I certainly don't mind Luka at 11.4 against what could be this Lakers roster is going to be up there tonight with the lineups that we saw in that late Portland OKC game last night, which was essentially a G League contest, and it went into overtime. You know, it was Isaiah Roby versus Drew Eubanks, and the Lakers are probably not going to have LeBron. I think Anthony Davis was listed as doubtful, but he's not playing in this game as well. So it could be one of those games where you look up and Dallas is up like 25 at the half, and Luka has 31 points and 8 3-pointers. I'm a little worried about how much he plays in the second half. That could be a little bit of an issue, but I mean, this Lakers team, especially removing LeBron, is so bad. So I have no problem paying up for Luka. I'm staying away from Harden. You could probably guess by how I was talking about that Bucks-Sixers game. I'm not paying up for him tonight. I think there's some tough positional matchups. I think Drew Holiday is going to be on him quite a bit tonight. If you want to go a little bit cheaper too, I like Cade Cunningham at the Brooklyn Nets. There's still this kind of fear factor with the Nets where it's like, oh my gosh, they have Durant and Kyrie, like avoid them at all costs. Like they just lost to the Hornets the other night. You know, a team that could end up being, you know, a matchup in a 1-game playoff to potentially knock them out of the postseason in a couple of weeks here. So I'm really not all that scared of Brooklyn. You know, outside of those two guys, the supporting cast is not great, and Cade Cunningham has been amazing, you know, over his last 15 or 20 games. You know, what he's doing not only as a scorer, but as a rebounder and as a distributor.
All right, Ryan, you're looking at this slate. Who do you want to pay up for in DFS?
Yeah, just looking at the slate, it's chalky and it's easy. Luka 11-4 versus the Lakers. The Lakers stink. Seems like every single night they give up a 50, 60 fantasy point guy, depending on who they play. So that's chalky. But if you wanted to mix it up, I like the narrative of this Bucks-Sixers game being like a staple game. And it's national TV. Nick said it, and I'm kind of on board. I don't know if Harden really cares about winning at this point. Like, he's getting all these accolades about passing Reggie Miller on all-time threes list, and he's scoring a ton of points on the all-time list based on how young he is. But a guy that I think does care about winning is Embiid, and if they're going to be in this game, Embiid's going to have a monster night. So if you wanted to not get so chalky with Luka, I'm totally fine with you paying up for Embiid versus the Bucks tonight.
And then, Ryan, get us out of here with this. Your favorite DFS value play.
I have a couple. Rudy Gay looked really good the other night, playing down the stretch center minutes, which is wild. He had 32 fantasy points. I think he caught, $3,400 for Rudy Gay tonight. That's a good option. Paschal played some, but wasn't as good at points per minute as Rudy Gay was. But also, we got some Drummond revenge game, if you like that narrative. They, like Nick said, they play Detroit tonight. He went off against Charlotte, but Charlotte gives up millions of points against centers that they play. But Drummond's the hot hand and revenge narrative I kind of like.
All right, Nick, talk to me. Value.
First of all, I want to be clear, Ryan. I just don't want you to get your hopes up. I'm pretty sure we have Dallas and the Lakers as the national TV game tonight, which is devastating. Devastating. I know, especially for me here in Milwaukee. As a YouTube TV user, I have no way now to watch this Bucks game. But yeah, great job by the NBA putting that one on instead of Bucks Sixers. I'll throw out a couple value plays quickly. Like Ryan said, kind of chalky, a lot of fairly obvious options. Thomas Satoransky has randomly resurfaced out of nowhere for the Wizards. He's at 4,100. They seem to have dropped Raul Neto from their rotation. Satoransky has played 29 and 30 minutes over the last two games, 22, 24 DraftKings points in those contests. You know, not a guy that's going to win you the slate necessarily, but a pretty safe option and somebody who's probably going to go relatively under-owned on this slate. Royce O'Neal, I always find myself coming back to. He plays a ton of minutes. He gets a lot of defensive stats. You know, occasionally he'll hit 3 or 4 threes. He's at 3,900. And then another guy, it's always feast or famine, but Reggie Bullock is routinely playing 35-plus minutes a game since the All-Star break. And his production is almost entirely three-point dependent. But in their last game, he had 7 threes. And he does that, you know, more often than not, it seems. So if you're looking for a high-risk, high-reward option, Bullock at 4,200 is my guy.
All right, good stuff, guys. Appreciate the time. As always, the sweat is going to roll on. That was our first segment of the show. If you're just tuning in now, welcome. We're talking MLB top home run hitters. Who are they going to be? We'll find out who our guys think coming up next. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Sweat. I'm Jesse. He's Emerson. We are joined by DraftKings contributors Steve Buchanan and Nick Fryer. And today on The Sweat, we are talking about power.
Yeah.
All right? We asked you guys to make a list of your top 5 home run hitters in MLB right now. Basically, if you needed a home run, who would you want at the plate.
There's some really obvious choices here
So-
that have to be in this top 5.
Yeah, we're setting this up because we know. Okay, it's time to reveal your top 5. Let's just do that. Nick,
Okay.
why don't you go ahead and reveal your top 5? Steve, let him reveal all 5, and then you can debate him on it.
Let's go.
Okay, let's see if Steve can contain himself for a few seconds. But the first guy that I have on my list at number 5 is Aaron Judge of the Yankees, of course. Playing in that bandbox helps him out a little bit, but still, I got to give it to him with what he's done over the years, even when he's been injured. Number 4, I'm going to go with Shohei Ohtani. As much as I know we're going to talk about it a little bit, I do have question marks just because of pitching and everything. Number 3, it's going to go to Matt Olsen after playing in Oakland for so long. We'll talk about a little more what it's going to look like with the Braves and everything. Number 2, I know this guy gets injured a little bit, and in terms of how much he plays, it hurts his numbers. But Franmil Reyes has to be up there, I think, on anybody's list. And then number 1, tied for the league lead in home runs last year, Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Steve, what issues? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with?
His whole list is fine. We actually found something that Nick is useful at. It can give some decent information. So I'm glad that we've gotten this far, right before the start of the MLB season. His list is fine. Mine varies a little bit. And you know what? Before we came on, I'm getting blasted by my producer about who I don't have on this list. And you know what? This is what creates good content. If I leave off somebody, that's going to create some debate. So maybe I should be the one producing because I obviously know how this game works and not anybody else. So I'm going to give my list and then we can debate after that. But you know what, Nick? You did a great job on that list. I thought there was a lot of good players on there. Reyes is somebody I probably should have put on there too myself. I'm actually ashamed that I didn't put him on there. But I'm going to give my list. And this is where we create the content because some people are going to disagree with it. And that's how you make, you get views and stuff that we need. You want views. Okay. Starting at number 5, we're going with Mitch Haniger, probably one of the more underrated power hitters in all of MLB. Just real quick, men on base, 19 of his 39 home runs came in that scenario. Mr. Clutch, that's what we're going to call him. Mitch Haniger. Oh, he also plays for the Mariners, so we also have to put him on there. Number 4, we're going to do Bryce Harper. Obviously, Harper has hit over 30 home runs in 3 of his last 4 seasons. In 2020, in that shortened season, he was on pace for 36. So he would have been there too as well if COVID didn't, come here and ruin everything. Aaron Judge, number 3, can't leave that guy off there. Okay, he's obviously a lot of injury issues with him. But in the 2 seasons where he played over 140 games, he's combined for 91 home runs. Absolutely blast the ball there. Shohei Ohtani at number 2, obviously cooled off immensely in the second half, but you cannot ignore 33 home runs in the first half of the season. That is absolutely absurd. Kid's only 26 years old, long way to go. And then the guy that, Nick left off his list, Fernando Tatis Jr. If you need a home run hitter in a clutch situation, that is my guy. 42 home runs last season. That's also while missing a month worth of games. Who's not on there? Vlad Guerrero Jr. Everybody get over it, okay? I understand. He had a monster year last year. But you know what? Maybe he'd be number 6 for me, okay? Just because he led the league in home runs last year doesn't mean it automatically puts him in the top 5, okay? He's number 6 for me. So calm down. People can debate in the comments, and tweets, email DraftKings if you want to. I don't give a crap. But this is where you create the content. You can debate all you want. That's my list.
Nick, would you like to respond?
Yes, please do.
I honestly don't know how to react. First of all, the compliment is really weird. I did a whole bunch of audio tape listening, before the show today, hearing people tell me I suck. So I was ready for Steve to tell me that the whole time. So the compliment threw me off. But the other thing is, he's telling us to, calm down, but also react how you want to react and get over it. I just don't know what to make of it. I don't know what Steve wants me to do. I want to feel my feelings, and I feel like, his list is solid. Obviously, we agree on some points, but to omit Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to me is bizarre. I felt a little dirty about leaving Salvi Perez off, who was tied for it with him last year for amount of home runs, but looking at years past. But Haniger on my short list, Bryce Harper on my short list. So in agreement on a few things, surprisingly.
All right.
No Salvador Perez for either one of you?
I mean, no. I wanted to, but it's just, you look at him with a catcher, and how much are we going to see from him this year, what he's done in the past. I mean, he had a great year, don't get me wrong. He was one of my guys last year, but I can't go with that. No, not on this list.
Yeah.
Not
so
doing it again. Nope, he won't be up there again.
we did cover that.
Yeah,
as
yeah,
Emery, but
100%.
Emerson wanted
100%.
some
I'm just kind of blown
clarification.
away because it's the same amount of home runs as Vlad Guerrero Jr., who Steve does not like.
All right,
and thinks is
let's
overrated.
take a look
Terrible
at some
baseball
home
player.
run futures.
I never
Yes,
said
you
that.
did.
I absolutely
Yeah.
never
Yes,
said
you
that.
did.
Might
Do
as well
not
We can
put words in
rewind
my
the
mouth.
tape. We can rewind the tape.
Okay.
He's reacting how he wants to react, Steve. Let him react.
Okay, boys. Let's all take a minute. We're going to move on. I don't want to have to put anybody in timeout.
Sorry, mother.
Oh,
We're
there's
gonna
his
take-
mom.
I'm practicing. We're going to take a look at some home run futures for the guys that are on your list. And we're going to start
Let's start with Steve.
Vladdy,
Steven guy.
Vlad Jr., which is where Steve wants to start. So on Nick's list, obviously, number one, highest total on the sportsbook, 48 last season, tied for most in MLB with aforementioned Salvador Perez. So, Nick, I'm guessing you're going over.
Well, I want to go over here, but as much as I have confidence in him to hit 40 home runs this season, I think expecting a guy to hit 44 home runs in any given year is a little bit of a tall ask. So if I have to pick one or the other, I'm going to take the over. But I don't love this number at 43.5 right now, so despite what he did last season. I just think that's asking a lot. Any guy, any given year, to go right around 45.
Steve, I know you're going to have a strong opinion about this.
Look, like we're all on this like hype train that I'm like all down on Vlad Guerrero Jr. He just didn't make my list. That's okay. You know, we can beg to have different opinions. I'm going to take the under on this one. One thing I think we also have to consider too as well is that the majority of the home games for the Blue Jays last year was played in Buffalo. 21 of those home runs for Vlad Guerrero came in Buffalo. Now, the field dimensions are fairly similar, but he did have a shorter field in Buffalo. So I'm not saying that's going to take away, 20 home runs for him, but that's something to consider as well when he had such a massive amount of home runs last year. But, kind of like to Nick's point, you can't expect these guys to go out there and consistently hit over 40 home runs. Everything has to go right. You have to avoid injury in that type of scenario. So I think under is the safer play at under 43.5.
All right, let's go with the 2021 NL MVP here. Bryce Harper, 33.5. He was on both of your lists. Steven, what do you want to do here?
Yeah, this is an over for me. I mean, he's consistently at this number if they're playing a full-length season, unlike in 2020. But like I said, he was on pace for 36 in that year if they played a full season. He's got some good protection around him. Obviously, playing in Philly in half of his games is a +2 as well. And look, there's some favorable ballparks in the NL East, so I think that he can go over this number here. Hits for power on both sides, from against lefties, against righties. Like him to go over this number.
All right, 35 total last season, Nick.
Yeah, even though he wasn't on my list, I still love this number. I think of all the of the many ones that we're looking at today, this one might be my favorite one. For Harper, as you guys have pointed out already, he's hit the over on this number three of the past 4 seasons. And I think you look at, he finally has protection now too with Nick Castellanos, like adequate protection. I think up to Bryce Harper status at least. So I think that's going to make a huge difference for him, even though this division got a little bit tougher with some of the pitching that's been added.
My bad. I thought he was on your list. I'm getting all of these dudes completely confused.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's really
I won't
tough.
yell at you unlike some people.
Thank you. I mean, whatever you're feeling, express it here in this segment.
Right. That's what this show is all about.
Shohei Ohtani was on both your lists, though, right?
Yes.
Looking for confirmation.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure. His home run total set at 38.5. He had 46 last season.
Wow.
In
Now-
155 games.
Yeah.
So, Nick, you want to take the over or the under on 38.5? Come on, go over.
Come on.
No, I can't back him on this one. I think Steve
Howard.
he made a good point about the latter half of the season. And my big thing is too, like, I just worry about he's got the whole dynamic of pitching too. And I understand you can go and not pitch him and then still hit him over the course of the season. And they did change the DH rule, the pitcher DH rule solely for him. Under the new collective bargaining agreement and everything. That does help, but I just get worried. Is he going to run into an issue? And this is still a high number in general for any guy. So no, I can't back him on this number. If you're going to take one or the other, you got to go under here.
Steve, do you agree? You got to go under?
It's going to be a gross, sweaty under because you're going to be watching this dynamic talent mash balls when he's at the plate. But that being said, I agree with Nick. With the whole pitching dynamic in place, it's hard to put him at a number. And I can't state enough how much he cooled off in the second half. 13 home runs in the second half last year. That's a major, major drop off for him. Maybe the fatigue of pitching and hitting really kind of set in. We'll see, like Nick mentioned with the DH rule and all that, but this is a number I'd feel better about taking the under. It's going to be gross that you're taking it, but I think that's the better play.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Steve, because 9 home runs and 235 plate appearances over the final 2 months of the season. So he's someone who definitely maybe struggled a little bit there towards the end. What about Matt Olsen? 39.5 here, Nick. I know he was on your list.
Yeah, so I said how with Vlad Guerrero Jr., I'm not comfortable taking a guy at 43.5 of the over on that, but I trust him to get 40, and I trust Matt Olsen to get 40 as well this season, making the shift to Atlanta, a much more hitter-friendly ballpark. Had 39 last season in Oakland. Of course, we had the shortened 2020 season, but the year before that, he had 36 in 127 games. So again, we're talking about guys where, injuries do come into play, but still he's getting those numbers. He's in a better lineup now as well. So I think you combine protection, hitter-friendly ballpark. I think that's going to make a big difference for him. And honestly, it doesn't need to make that big a difference. Just needs to make, give him one extra home run from what he had last season.
Okay, he's got a new ballpark now, Steven. That going to make a big difference here with these home run numbers?
If you put all of his batted ball events from last season, put them in Atlanta, that actually would have given him 6 more home runs than he had last year. He's going to absolutely mash in the NL East because of that shorter ballpark, a better protection in that lineup. I don't hate him to even lead the league in home runs. You can get that at 13-1 odds over on DraftKings Sportsbook. I think he's going to go over that number of 39.5. This is going to be a huge boost for him in Atlanta.
All right, Mitch Haniger, Steve, he's on your list. He had some powerful words in the offseason. He said they're going to end this effing drought.
Oh, wow.
I did bleep myself on that.
Those are feelings right there.
So 31.5. He had 39 last season. Steve, do you feel like he can go over?
Yeah, the DraftKings Sportsbook continues to disrespect the Seattle Mariners, and I feel like this is a play that you're going to take the over. I mean, we might cash this bet in the month of May with the way that Mitch Haniger's attitude is. He might hit 4 home runs a game, and then we're over and we're cashing this by the month of May. I don't know, maybe. It's possible. But that being said, 31.5 is just too low. This is obviously someone who doesn't hit this number frequently, but a lot of injuries have come through. We see him in a full season last year. If he can stay healthy, he is on the cusp of hitting 40 home runs a year in a much better lineup than we even saw last year. An immense amount of protection for him no matter where he bats. He primarily hit second last year. I don't know if they're going to shift that around with Eugenio Suarez, Jesse Winker in the lineup too as well, but regardless of where he hits, the protection is going to be much better. He mashes the ball. Even in that AL West, he's going over that number.
Yeah, Nick, he missed more than half of the 2019 season, the entire shortened 2020 season, and everyone was like, oh, what's going to happen 21? He absolutely smashed projections.
Taters.
So 31.5 right now. Do you think he can go over?
Yeah, I think Haniger, he was on my short list too. Him and Bryce Harper just got left off. And the big reason for that was in 2019 where he still played, 157 games and only had 26 home runs. But I think we saw him break out last year. This lineup has improved. You add Jesse Winker. If you're going to stick him behind him or ahead of him, I still think that's going to be a big boost for him. So, yeah, I like Haniger a lot. Another guy who was big on last season, did really well. So the over on 31.5, absolutely.
Guys, thanks for opening up and expressing yourself and being vulnerable.
Thank you for feeling your feelings.
Thank you for making this a safe space. And I feel like I wasn't going to get slapped today by most of you, so that's good.
Oh, my God. I just actually slacked Slate tonight. I said Steve would definitely slap Nick, Will Smith style, if he could.
Yeah, I can confirm I'm reading that in Slack.
Because I said you're both here, in the Boston area. We got to get you in here, and we got to
get you in studio.
We got to see it.
DraftKings does not condone violence of any kind,
Absolutely
so we would not allow any slapping to
Absolutely
happen.
not.
Okay, at least I know it's a safe space there now.
Yeah,
okay,
it is.
Love you guys. Thanks, Steve. I hope you have a great rest of your day, too. Okay, so we've got a 3-headed monster talking some sticky puck right after this.
That means hockey.
It's hockey.
All right, here's a look at the Eastern Conference standings. Some big games tonight. We got a lot of teams jostling for position here.
Trying to slap each other a little bit.
Yeah, Bruins taking on the Maple Leafs. Penguins taking on the Rangers. Leafs and Bruins tied for points in the Atlantic, while the Rangers are just 1 point behind the Penguins in the Metro.
I mean, yeah, for sure. Like, speaking of our hometown team here, like, the goal for Boston right now is to get out of the wild card altogether. Yeah. And really, they want to avoid, like, those locomotives in, like, Florida and Carolina. And most of these teams have anywhere between, like, 15, 16, 17 games to go. And I think, like, in terms of the Eastern Conference, you can see, like, the point drop off after the Capitals down to the Blue Jackets.
Outrageous.
So you basically have the playoff teams, like, set. Now it's just a matter of, like, where are they going to be? You're going to be a wild card team. You're going to be seated in one of those top three, like, in your division. It's going to be an exciting last, like, few weeks here of the regular season in hockey, and we have some great dudes here to talk about it. RotoWire's Paul Bruno and AJ Scholes, along with the host of the Fantasy on Ice podcast for NHL.com. That's Pete Jensen. Let's see, Paul, real quick. You and I talked a lot about that Sabres-Chicago game last night here. We were thinking, like, rostering a lot of these Chicago dudes. What did you think when you saw the ending of that Sabres game last night? Buffalo coming back after being down like 4-0. And that goal there by Tage Thompson, like, oh my God, loses his stick, puck goes off the board, bounces off the goalie, and that's how it ends, dude.
How good is that guy? A giant who scores. I mean, I can't believe the Sabres fans have to be feeling so good about having that guy in the fold. And how Vegas let him escape is beyond me. I don't understand that one. And better for the Sabres that they have this guy to build their team around, a giant who has offensive skill. We haven't seen that in this league for a long time.
All right, now let's get to tonight's 9-game DFS slate. We're going to start with Paul's team taking on the rival Bruins. How about that? Paul, Leafs got the better of the Bruins in their first meeting this season, but that was way back in November. Come on. A lot has changed since then. Like, a lot.
Especially with the Bruins.
Yeah, so what's your take on tonight's game, and which player stands out to you in DFS?
That game was eons ago, as you suggest. The Bees have been on fire for a long while, almost since then. And meanwhile, it seems that much of the recent focus on the Leafs is a few bad results against some of the league's bottom feeders. But I'm here to tell you, they've come away with a number of impressive wins recently over Washington, Carolina, and Florida in their last 10 starts, too. There's finally some good news in net, as Mrazek has strung together a pair of quality starts that surprises everybody who's watching this team of late. And he's now 12-6 on the season, a pretty surprising mark when you look at it. In terms of players to watch in this game, obviously the two snipers, Matthews and Pasternak, are expected to impact the game, and I'm sure they will. But I'll also be looking out for John Tavares and Taylor Hall, a pair of second-line stars, one from each club, to see if they continue their respective hot streaks. They'll cost you $6,200 or $4,800 respectively.
All right, AJ, looking at this game, what do we think?
Well, I think you got to look at the Bruins in terms of DFS here. And I like Bergeron to start off at 7,100. Now, full disclosure, he was not on the ice for the morning skate, is just coming back from that arm injury. Could just be maintenance, holding him out of practice, but it's something to monitor there. But as far as reasons to use the Bruins, look, Jeremy Swayman is 9-1-0 in his last 10 games with a 1.99 goals against average, while Eric Kallgren hasn't played in 10 NHL games in his career. The net-minding matchup here just favors the Bruins. So I think the safer play is to use Boston's forwards tonight, especially when you consider, like, Bergeron significantly cheaper than Matthews. Pasternak is more expensive, obviously, but I think based on those prices, you kind of have to favor Boston, and especially considering, again, Toronto's defense is allowing 3.75 goals per game in the month of March.
Pete, you leaning towards utilizing some of these Bees players?
I like the Bruins more than the Maple Leafs in this game, and also for the season and upcoming postseason at large. I think the Bruins are a sneaky team that could, they have the depth, 3 strong lines to maybe even win the whole thing. It really boils down to what we're going to see from Swayman in the playoffs. But so far, in his career, 930 save percentage or so through 41 NHL games. Really impressive stuff. Full checks in my book. And then, as far as their depth forwards, like we're talking about Pasternak, the big reason why Pasternak and Hall have been so good on the second line is Eric Howler Eric Howler has 3 straight multi-point games as the number 2 center for the Boston Bruins. When Bergeron was out, he took on a bigger role. He's still relevant in DFS game-to-game basis. I think he has been the key to the Bruins finding their best depth scoring in recent memory. The Bruins, even when they went to the Cup final in 2019, were not this deep of an offense. And then, of course, they added Hampus Lindholm on the blue line. So, yeah, I would look to get one of the secondary guys from the Bruins in my lineup, whether it is at the center position like Howler or maybe on defense with Hampus Lindholm.
AJ, you had a little extra pep in your step yesterday after what the Penguins did on Sunday? 11 goals.
Yeah, that was a fun one to watch, that's for sure. Look, I do want to correct one thing. It looks like Mrazek is going to get the start tonight based on the morning skate instead of Kallgren. So really stack up on Boston because that's even worse for the Maple Leafs.
Okay.
Getting
Or
to
listen
that,
to what I said.
getting to the Penguins game. Look, heading into that game against Detroit, they had something to prove after getting downright embarrassed by the Rangers. I mean, there's no way around it. That game was terrible. I think the AHL affiliate out of Wilkes-Barre Scranton could have played better in that game than the Penguins did. The Rangers, for their part, absolutely dominated them. And they, that I don't want to take anything away from New York in that contest because they took it to Pittsburgh and earned that one. Absolutely. Again, when you look at the price tags in DFS, I think I might look at the Rangers instead, starting with Chris Kreider here, 6,100. 10 goals in 13 games in the month of March, including 5 with the man advantage. Obviously, the storyline is Pittsburgh's going to want some revenge after that game. Tristan Jarry is going to start, and he was hooked in that previous game against New York after giving up 3 there. But I think the Rangers are just a safer play. They've been unstoppable of late. And again, they just absolutely took it to Pittsburgh the last time they met.
Yeah, Pete, how do you see this one playing out? Penguins are back on the ice after knocking off the Red Wings 11-2, but hey, Rangers team did just beat them last week.
Yeah, I think it's a nice bounce back spot for Pittsburgh after last week's game, and I like that they're playing Rickard Rakell on the second line with Evgeny Malkin. Malkin has been red hot lately, of course, but I think it's one of those games that is probably going to get a little higher scoring, maybe like a 4-3 type game. More times than not. I know they played a low-scoring game earlier in the season, but I see the offense as being too deep right now for the goaltenders to handle. From New York, definitely look at their 2 trade deadline acquisitions. Frank Vatrano scored against the Penguins in the game last week, has 4 goals in 6 games since coming over from the Florida Panthers. And then Andrew Kopp so far has been one of the best deadline producers in the entire league, arguably the best, with 5 points, 1 goal, 4 assists in his first 3 games with the blue shirts. And both of those guys, best part about it, their prices are so cheap. Kopp, $3,800 in DraftKings, Vatrano, $2,700 in DraftKings. And they're both playing in the top 6 right now. So they will bring that exposure, whether you take one or both of them, to Panarin or Zibanejad and Kreider.
Okay, Paul, who stands out to you here in DFS? I mean, these are 2 teams that are going to be going blow for blow because the Penguins just with that 1-point advantage in the Metro standings.
Emerson, first let me correct something I said earlier. I had Tage Thompson coming from Vegas. Of course, I had him mixed up with Alex Tuck. Thompson came from St. Louis, for anybody who's on my case about that one.
Yeah, he played like 3 games for him, and it's like whatever. Dude.
Yeah, but anyway, as for tonight's game, I think, obviously Pittsburgh's looking for a little bit of revenge, and the theme tonight in a number of games is emotion and pride, and nobody embodies that more than Sidney Crosby. I think he's going to have a big game to lead the charge for Pittsburgh tonight, and I would take him and Malkin over any duo for the Rangers this evening. I think Pittsburgh's going to show up in a big way, and this applies also to Tristan Jarry. AJ mentioned that he got the hook in the last game. He's going to show up in a big way too. He got a shutout against these guys earlier in the season, and I think that's the version you're going to see tonight for $8,100 back in the nets.
All right, fellas, let's take a look at the full DFS slate now, because there are 7 other games to choose from.
I know. We've talked about some meaty games, but there are other meaty games as well.
There are 7 other games. So who are you going to be paying up for tonight? Who do you think, Pete?
I mean, there are so many great games on the slate. I mean, you have to look at other potential playoff previews. Like, I love that matchup going on in the Western Conference with Calgary and Colorado. Those teams have played each other a couple of times this month already. I think Johnny Gadreau is like a very safe spend up for, even against the Avalanche, who are a standout team. He has 3 points in 2 games against Colorado this season, and he's got 50 points in 33 home games for the Calgary Flames. They'll be on home ice against those Avalanche. That's a matchup of the heavyweights right now in the Western Conference. And I think that Johnny Gaudreau deserves more Hart Trophy candidacy than he currently is getting from different markets around the league. But this guy is the bounce back player of the season in the whole league. And yeah, I just think he's a safe play in DFS in terms of a spend up for on one of the best line trios in the league with Elias Lindholm and Matthew Tkachuk.
All right, Paul, Pete said it. Plenty of other good options to choose from. So where are you going?
I'm going to look for a mismatch first, and that's where we're going to load up. I see the Panthers coming home from a long road trip, including a narrow victory in Montreal. They also played an unimpressive game against the Leafs on Sunday night, and I expect that their big boys are going to show up in a big way. So I would consider stacking that top line around Alex Barkov, who's costing $8,600. That's balanced by the fact that Giroux for $4,900 and Verhaeghe for $3,900 bring that average cost way down and still allow you to get 3 pretty good snipers in your lineup again, and they'll avoid Montreal's top checkers because they got home ice advantage. You also know I like picking the hot scoring players who are involved in an apparent mismatch. That applies to Kirill Kaprizov and the Minnesota Wild. They host the Flyers tonight, and he's on the heels of a seven goals and 37 shots on goal in his last 10 starts. And as Pete mentioned, I'm taking a look at that Calgary game against the Colorado, and it's a home game for the Calgary club. And their emotional leader is Matthew Tkachuk. He's been on fire for an awfully long time. I'd plug him in for a $6,200 value play, even though he hosts the best team in hockey, I would say, so far this year. His line has been scorching hot, though, for a long time, as evidenced by 17 points over his last 10 games, and I'll buy into that.
All right. AJ, who do you like?
Well, I can't believe I'm going to do this like 3 shows in a row, but I'm
A
going to pay up for
defenseman!
D.
Oh,
I'm going to pay
do
up
it.
for D. I can't believe it. Cale Mccarter is my guy here at 7,500. It's not a great matchup against Calgary, as these guys have pointed out, is 2 really good teams. But this guy has 5 multi-point games in his last 10 outings. Now, to be fair, he was held without a point in 4 of those contests as well. So a little bit more of a GPP play here than a cash game. Still, he's averaging 3.5 shots and 2.4 blocks over that 10-game stretch. And that's a decent floor, but it's not good enough for a guy with that price tag at 7,500. So if you're going to pay up for Cale Mccarter, you absolutely are expecting some kind of points. And look, based on his recent performance, you got a 50-50 shot at a multi-point effort here.
Gentlemen, great work. That was a fantastic job today. We will see everyone back here tomorrow. We got one more block to go after this break. And let me tell you something. Tiger Watch, the mood is tense.
It's on, baby.
I have been on some serious reports, but nothing quite like this. We are stalking the airplane of Tiger Woods, and Jeff Ulrich here to tell us about a potential tramp stamp he will be receiving if Tiger Woods wins the Masters.
So definitely stay tuned for that.
All right, everybody. This is huge, huge news right now. Tiger Woods' plane has reportedly landed in Augusta. So he plans to scout Augusta National today to further evaluate his body and his game on the tournament grounds. This is a big, big step in his efforts towards making a decision on whether or not he's going to play the Masters next week. First round teeing off on Thursday. This isn't just like your typical little flat, beachy golf course. These are like mountainous hills. And for a dude who nearly lost his life a little more than a year ago, almost had his leg amputated, he's got to feel it. He's got to feel this out and see if his body can hang in there.
Yeah, so we do have DraftKings contributor Jeff Ulrich here with us. He's going to comment on some of this. Jeff, Tiger reportedly exhausting every effort to play in the Masters, and as of today, still remains in the field list for the event. He's plus 4,000 on the DK Sportsbook to win it.
Odds are crazy.
Which, is seems like those are kind of short.
Yeah. And what would happen if Tiger won this thing?
Okay.
I mean, what would happen is I'd have to. I'd have to get a tattoo.
So we have a tweet from Jeff Ulrich. If Tiger Woods wins the Masters this year, I will get a tattoo of a tiger slapping a golden bear. So, Jeff,
I love this for you. Love this
first of
journey.
all, explain the tweet. Second of all, if Tiger Woods wins the Masters, we will pay for the tattoo, but we also get to pick the size.
It's going to be.
We'll negotiate the size after the show.
No, there's no negotiating, buddy.
No
I'm good with the paying for it. I'm also good with getting it if he wins, because I probably won't care at that point. It'll just be so amazing. But look, I'm clearly just trying to motivate Tiger Woods. So, he's seen my tweet. He's flying down there now. He's going to do everything he can to win this thing. But, I don't really think that Tiger, even if he plays, has a chance. So that's kind of where the tweet comes from. And, I really hope that in not 4 or 5 days, in over a week, Jesse, and Emerson, who's also there, I hope I look stupid, and I hope Tiger Woods does win the event. But, plus 4,000, we're talking about it from a realistic standpoint. I mentioned this yesterday. I mean, you've got guys like Daniel Berger sitting there, players who've been, just all over leaderboards, all kind of a fall here. I just don't think that he's live to win this event. But he's Tiger Woods. He won the U.S. Open on one leg. If he wins, it'll be fantastic, and I'll end up with a nice tattoo. So
I just think it's
yet to be decided. Yet to be decided.
No, we will decide that at a later date. But I do just think it's crazy that he's plus 4,000 on the DK Sportsbook. Shouldn't he be plus 10,000?
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
It is crazy, and what it speaks to is it speaks to the popularity of Tiger Woods. I mean, people want to get regardless of what Tiger Woods' form is, or if he even if he has a leg or any competitive practice, people will bet Tiger Woods. He's just the most popular golfer. There's nobody that moves the needle more than Tiger Woods, perhaps in any sport these days. So it speaks to his overall popularity. He's going to be probably one of the most popular bets, even at plus 4,000. People just don't care when it comes to Tiger what number they're getting. They just want a piece of the action, and it's great. It's great for everyone involved. It's great for the DraftKings Sportsbook. They can put up more props and have more fun with it. And it's great for bettors, too, who want to get a piece of the action. So he's just that type of player. He's that type of figure. That's why we're talking about his plane movement on the show today.
Yeah, which we are tracking.
Yeah, no one talking about Scotty Scheffler becoming world number one at all. No.
Who cares? Everyone's like, Tiger's playing. He's touching down in Augusta.
Love the Golden Bear part of the tattoo too, because we all know if one more win and he does tie Jack for most wins there at Augusta National, that would be 6. Tiger currently has 5. Feel a little bad for the Valero Texas Open at TPC San Antonio.
A bit.
Everyone's just jonesing for the Masters so much. This is a really good field though, Jeff. And one trend, I can't remember if you tweeted out or someone else did, 7 of the last 9 winners of the event before the Masters were won by guys who at the time did not have a Masters ticket like Punch. So these are some motivated dudes trying to get to Augusta National.
Wow.
Start me out here though in the 10K plus range. Some big names here. Is there a guy you prefer over the others?
So you're right. Just off the bat, this is kind of an underrated event. I think this is one of the better venues we get on the PGA Tour. It's really tough tee to green test, kind of like we saw at the Valspar a couple weeks ago. And it has seen a lot of first time winners. It's seen guys like Jordan Spieth, top more favorites in the field take it down too. But from a DFS perspective, Rory McIlroy is going to be heavy chalk this week. But it's for good reason. I mean, this is a good setup for Rory. It's a tough ball striker's test. If you hit it long and straight here, you get a big advantage. You don't have to hit like those 200-yard iron shots in as much. And Rory's, smashing the ball off the tee like he always does. His around the green game has been really solid. He's gained strokes around the green in 8 straight starts now. And the iron game's picked up a little bit for him lately too. So if the putter shows up for Rory today, or this week, I should say, I mean, I think that he's definitely going to have a very good shot of putting like a top 5, especially given the weakness at the top of this field with all the top players skipping it. So I got to say Rory is the chalk I'm fine eating this week. If you're going to take a shot, I think Bryson at 10-2 is just so intriguing because of the high birdie rate he makes. If he makes that weekend for you in GPP, is going to be a lot lower owned and potentially will pay off. But he comes with a ton more risk just because of his lack of playing time. So.
Okay.
All right, let's talk about guys in that 9K range. Who do you like here, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, the 9K range it's kind of chalk with guys who just seem to be overvalued this week at the top, like Chris Kirk at 9,400, little ridiculous, Siwoo Kim at 9,600. I just don't want to pay those prices. But you've also got guys like Gary Woodland, who's played quite well of late. Coming off a T21, he was in content. Remember, he should have won the Arnold Palmer Invitational. I can't remember. I was talking to Glasheen about this yesterday. Oh. He basically gave a win to Scotty Scheffler at the Arnold Palmer. So this guy was in contention lately on another tough course. And then Tony Finau at 9,100. I mean, he's got bigger odds and is undervalued compared to these guys like Siwoo Kim and Chris Kirk. Like, Tony Finau is a great fantasy golf producer. He's got great birdie rate. And at 9,100, just because he's missed a few cuts, you shouldn't write him off. So some good value there at the bottom end of the 9K range.
All right. You know where we like to go from the 10K to 9K to the 8K range.
That's crazy.
Which dude stands out to you here? I see Charlie Hoffman. Like, this is a course, right? He's performed well on in the past.
I mean, Charlie Hoffman is I'm trying to think of something that rhymes with. He's the valiant warrior of the Valero. That's not very good.
What? Yeah.
I mean, he's finished runner-up here 3 times and he's won it once. I mean, like over the last 8 years. I mean, he is amazing at this course. He comes alive. He's going to be very popular. So is Russell Knox in the low 8K range. Both those guys, they're solid values, I think, when you look at the players above them. Again, you've got guys like List, who's missed 3 cuts in a row. Davis Riley, who's really, really good young player, but he's going to be a little bit volatile. So those guys offer a little bit of safety, I think, Knox and Hoffman. I like getting up to Adam Hadwin in the 8K range if you can. Really good long iron player. He's just got really good potential upside. And if you can fit in like a Woodland, Finau, Hadwin kind of stack, maybe you're going to fade the top players this week, which I don't think is a bad strategy. Hadwin is a guy you could certainly fit in with those guys. So I really like trying to get up to Hadwin here. He's playing really well. Again, good long iron player. I think he sets up well for this event. And look, I mean, a Canadian did win this event 2 years ago. So maybe Hadwin can make it 2 out of 3.
Okay. Good for you, man.
We're going to combine the next 2. So 7K or under. So kind of combining
you can't
those
do that
tiers. Sorry, Jeff. A guy you wrote up in your article, David Lipsky, 6,900. 7 of 8 cuts on the season, coming off a T7 finish last week in Punta Cana. Wow. What do we think? He's playing TPC San Antonio for the first time this week.
Oh, that's spooky.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit. It's a little bit spooky. I mean, it's not that big a deal, but Lipsky's played pretty well. He's a solid all-around player. I think let's start with the 7K range because I really like Doug Diem at 7,600. This is a solid young player. He's very, very good ball striker. One thing you really do need to do here, like I mentioned the long iron play, you need to be a solid iron player, especially with those long irons. A lot of longer par 3s. Doug Diem brings that. I mean, he's very good in proximity just overall. I think he's 5th overall in this field in proximity, but he's good from the longer distances too. And I think Doug Diem is the type of player who could pop up here. Like we mentioned this, 5 of the last 10 winners have been first-timers on the PGA Tour. Doug Diem has been, T6 at the players. I mean, he's coming in with confidence. Like, we've seen this with players in the past, too. Kevin Chappell came off a top 10 in 2017 at the Masters to win the Valero. Doug Diem kind of coming off a similar performance. I really like him at 7,600. Down below, you mentioned Lipsky. I think Lipsky is like a safe cash game option. My guy Danny Lee down there at 6,800, I think is a good GPP option. Going to be very low, and he's played pretty well. He likes tough courses too. And then down at 6,300, Brandon Hagee is a guy, a punt play. I don't mind. He's T21 at the Valspar again, another tough course. Made the cut last week. Brandon Hagee hits the ball a ton, and he can get hot with the putter. So I like him as a punt play this week.
10 seconds or less. Who wins this week?
Tony Finau.
No.
I'm not picking Tony Finau just because I don't want to give Reed the satisfaction. I'm going to say Doug Diem. I'm going to go off the board a little bit. This is an event that's seen a lot of first-time winners, a lot of big, odds winner. We had Andrew Landry. Corey Connors like 150 to 1 when he won here. I think Doug Gim is a good long shot to target this week.
Good stuff, Jeff. That's
Jeff.
a show. Appreciate you as always.
This is the Tiger. The Tiger slapping a golden bear. Mac Daddy Santa right here from Tiger Woods'
All right.
account. This is going to be the Tiger that's going to be slapping a golden
Daddy
bear.
Tiger slapping like a Winnie the Pooh version of Jack Nicklaus.
Okay, you two take it to Twitter. That's a show. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. See you then.